I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, I'm all you need. In the off-white Rari, baby, we run the streets. I'm a K-I-N-G, Westside royalty. I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, that's all you need. I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, I'm all you need.
Okay. All right. Welcome back, everybody. You are with Stephen Beseda on my podcast, Get It. And we're on the social Nostra network. So please feel free to check us out on YouTube and subscribe and like and comment. We're also on Facebook. We're on Instagram and we're on Twitter. And if you want to contact me personally, my Instagram is SSBESEDA, and I do respond to all comments, so please feel free to comment. So today, my guest is a dear friend of mine who married an even dearer friend of mine, Ania Macomber, and we're talking about mental health and the issues that we're going through as a country, especially right now, as we're seeing more and more people isolated, and there is a little bit of an uptick in suicide. And one of the big reasons why I'm huge on mental health and mental health awareness is I've actually lost a couple of family members to suicide due to mental health issues. And, it's such a impactful, negatively impactful that goes on. And so it means a lot to me. Mental health awareness is a huge thing, and I know that you personally have taken up the fight in mental health, and so I'm super excited to have you today. And so, let's just start off with, why is mental health so important to you, and how has it impacted your life?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me. My name is Ania. So the company that I run right now is Tikva Roots. And the reason why I decided to run it, and well, first of all, let me answer your question. Why mental health is important to me. Well, it's kind of a vital component in living life, right? Like you
Right.
need to have a healthy mental state in order to have a healthy relationship with yourself. You need to have a healthy mental state in order to basically have a fruitful relationships with other people. I think one of my biggest takeaways though, when I started my advocacy in mental health, was just understanding my feelings and attaching words to my feelings, because I think that's something that's very difficult to do. And we don't learn that right away. It's something I think we learn over time. And if I can communicate my feelings, I feel like then I can communicate what my needs are. And as humans, I feel like our needs need to be met in order to feel some type of fulfillment, right?
Right.
But I mean, there's literally a never ending list of reasons why I love mental health. But I guess it's just the community. I think one of my most favorite things about mental health is a community that I was able to build, just being vulnerable and sharing my story. I mean, you'd be surprised by how many people are out there right now waiting to hear your story just so that they don't feel alone. And I mean, I choose to live because I know that I'm someone's answered prayer, and I want to stick around because I want people to know that God answers.
Okay.
So that's
I
kind of
that.
a big gist of it.
Then, going back to, you started this company, so let's talk about that. When did you start your company? What is it about? How is it impacting the awareness of mental health? And just tell us about, just retract here. What is it again? Why did you start it? And then what's that mission, and what are you doing right now? And what have you done up to date?
Yeah. So, to make long story short, I guess I left my corporate job in the spring of 2018. And I remember when I got that job, I'm like, man, this is it. This is like my dream job. This is I can literally look at my parents and be like, yes, I did it. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. But there was always that, like, I don't know, like there was something missing and I didn't know what it was. But one thing I did know was every time I spoke to people, I serviced people, every time I just working with people in general, like that's where I got a sense of fulfillment, helping people. And so kind of fast forwarding a little bit, mental health has been something that's always been in my heart. My family has gone through it. I've seen the recovery process. I've seen the healing process, and sometimes it never really gets to the part of the healing process, unfortunately. But there was a point right before I left my job where somebody very, very, very close to me attempted suicide. And that was when I realized life really is short. I mean, you know, people say that all the time, but you really don't understand what that means until someone so close to you just like gets taken away or almost gets taken away. And that was right around the time I realized I didn't want to be ambitious for myself anymore. I wanted to be ambitious for other people. And so when I was kind of like teeter-tottering between like, should I leave my corporate job? Should I not? Like, I'm scared. Like, everyone is scared to do something new. But I remember my girlfriend, Erin, you know, Erin had asked me, you know, if you had 6 months left to live, how do you want people to remember you? Do you want people to remember you as somebody, as an executive who drove a nice car and had these things? Or do you want people to remember you as somebody who loved? And I said, that's easy. Like, I want to be remembered as somebody who loved. So I left my corporate job. I decided to work on Tikva Roots. And that was like spring 2018. And then spring of 2019, I officially launched my apparel brand. So each piece that was created is inspired by hope and someone's story. So that's kind of how I started Tikva Roots. It's still kind of being molded into what it's supposed to be, but ultimately it kind of brings community together. It shines light on people's mental health stories. It allows them to be vulnerable and ultimately feel empowered by, you know, what they've been through. And now they can kind of contribute to society and share their story.
Now, how do people purchase your products off of that? What's the website and all that stuff?
Yeah, so it's tikvaroots.com. People can also follow us on Instagram. Handle is tikvaroots. So tikva is actually hope in Hebrew, and roots is synonymous to element. So it's elements of hope.
Okay. So spell it out.
Tikva, tikva, roots, ROOTS.
Okay. And so they just go to tikvaroots.com, and then on Instagram, tikvaroots. There's a Facebook page, I assume.
There's a Facebook page, yes. And
then part of the proceeds goes to?
Yeah, so a part of the proceeds actually goes towards a mental health organization. So the way we're doing it is, this is kind of like now jumping into actual like the production and how we make the apparel is it's actually inspired by kintsugi. Are you kind of familiar with what kintsugi is?
No.
So kintsugi is actually the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery. So I'm sure you've seen like those potteries and they have like the gold line because they've been shattered. And that is what like inspired just this creation of Tikva Roots. It's just, you know, it's not about repairing the damage, but it's like illuminating the brokenness, right? Because that's what makes us beautiful. That's what makes us unique, the different cracks that we have and how we're able to shine light through them. So each apparel is inspired by somebody's story. And when you purchase product from their story, a percentage of the proceeds goes towards an organization that they choose.
Nice.
So that's how it works. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Well, that's great. Okay. So just follow up here. You know, now that you've been involved in this for a couple of years, what are some things that people can do to recognize that they're having mental health issues, or recognize loved ones, family, coworkers are having mental health issues? Because mental health is, know it's becoming a bigger thing now, but so many people just don't know what to look for. And I'll just speak to myself quickly here. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also a coach. I am in the two of the highest, we'll say, worlds of divorce, mental health issues. A lot of coaches go through problems, a lot of entrepreneurs do. And so just a lot of like problematic stuff, unfortunately. And because of that, I actually have a psychologist. He's primarily a sports psychologist, but I call him once every 6 months. We do a little check-in. And the reason why I even started doing it was at one point I owned 3 companies and was managing all 3 and had employees and stuff. And I was going through, as you know, the stuff in my personal life. My wife and I lost several different pregnancies over the course of a year when we were trying to have a second child. Pressure and stress of the businesses, long hours, all that kind of stuff. So I just started to feel like I was becoming a shadow of myself, and I really didn't even like who I was starting to become. It wasn't that I was a nasty person, but I was coming home and I was drinking every night just to try and take my mind off of things. And I was disconnecting from my family, also going through what at the time I didn't know was depression from the loss of pregnancies and then dealing with my businesses and everything going on. And so I reached out to Mario is his name, just to make sure I wasn't losing my marbles. And it was a really good conversation, and it really spurred me on into, you know, I've used him for being the sports psychologist for our basketball teams, but then it's kind of changed our relationship a little bit, where I was able to call him and check in with him once every few months, and we do a little 30-minute talk together on the phone and make sure I'm still moving in the right direction. So, and he's great because he just speaks. He just does not sugarcoat anything. He just comes straight at me. This is what it is. Here you go. And it's been great for me, and I prefer it that way for myself. So, you know, but I didn't know that I was depressed in the first place. When we were talking, he's like, dude, you're depressed. Like, let's just start there. You're going through depression. I didn't know what depression was, you know? And so for me, you know, I do take mental health a very, very important in my life for all the reasons stated. So, you know, but even for someone like myself, I am educated. I knew a little bit about this stuff, but going back to, you know, how do you see the signs? What are the signs? How can you tell if somebody seems to really be struggling? Because a lot of us don't know what that looks like. We don't know how to help.
Right. Yeah. I mean, first of all, wow. What you've been through just the last couple of years is a lot, especially if it's something that you've never been through before and it's a feeling that you've never experienced before. It begins to be very overwhelming, and it's almost like you want to shut down because you don't want to experience those feelings or the pain or the frustration or the confusion. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a professional at this whatsoever. I just happen to love mental health. I've been through anxiety, depression myself. I have a series of PTSD from childhood. So, you know, just based off of my experience, I would say, like, one thing at the top of my head is don't be afraid to ask yourself the hard questions. And I feel like that's what you did. You kind of was just like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I coming home and drinking every night? Like, why am I feeling this way? Like, and you're trying to understand yourself, but it's difficult because you don't really, you know, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, it's like you need to understand your feelings in order to communicate them, so then you can identify what your needs are, right? And then when you can identify your needs, then you get a sense of fulfillment. So like an example would be, you know, like if I told my husband, Craig, hey, I'm feeling lonely, I need a hug. And that's his cue to give me a hug to then, you know, close the gap so I could feel that closeness with him, so I don't feel lonely anymore. So I think asking yourself the hard questions, like, what's wrong with me? You know, I think there's such a stigma to that. Is like, people think that asking yourself that is wrong, but it's not. I think that's actually like an amazing step to identifying who you really are, you know? And I feel like in order to to really get to know your best self, you have to look at your worst self in the mirror and embrace that person. Like hug that person and be like, we got this together. We'll work through this. Because the sooner that you accept the bad parts of yourself, then the sooner you can identify how to correct certain areas in your life that you can like make better, you know? Right. So I think asking yourself the hard questions, and, you know, I think like what you did, you called somebody, I think having like a list. I remember talking to this one girl in New York when I was doing a campaign, kind of just talking to people about mental health and what they do to cope. She told me she had a 911 list. So she says, I choose 3 people, and that list, I would go through the list and call each one. And I would say, hey, you're in my 911 list. And what that means is when I'm feeling some type of way, you know, when I'm sad or I'm upset, like I want to call you. And you'd be surprised, like those people actually feel honored, you know, they're like, wow, like I'm in your 911 list. That's cool. Like, you know, so I think awesome. Like, yeah.
I've never heard of before. And that's great. I'm going to have a 911 list.
Yeah. And I mean, you kind of did that, you know, just add a couple more people to that list.
You know? Well, you know, and I didn't mean, sorry to cut you off there, but that's such a great piece of advice that I've never heard. I'm 30, almost 38. I've never heard of a 911 list before like that. And that might actually be one of the best things to take away from this for everyone. Again, like I have my wife, and my wife's amazing. And obviously you're close to Tara, but you know, Tara also works a lot. So, and there's also that, like, for me personally, I can only speak to myself here. I don't really want to call her every time that there's an issue, right? Like I need to have like other men I can talk to. So that's great. That is really, and get that other outside perspective. So I love that. So sorry, continue on, but that's great. So for those of you listening, have a 911 list. That is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, other things to kind of like, you know, identify maybe, or you're questioning if you're in a healthy state of mind, is if you're constantly like sad, if you find yourself, you know, kind of like not wanting to get out of bed. Those are pretty common things that you could even just like look up online, and it really just tells you the first signs of what depression is basically just like you don't really want to do anything. And then sleeping is kind of your favorite thing because you just want to sleep the day away. So things like that. But yeah, definitely having people to support you, your community is huge, so huge when it comes to that. I definitely wouldn't have gotten over what I did if it wasn't for my community. So.
And, you know, just to kind of expand really quickly. So now, look, we're living in isolation. We're all in the coronavirus together here. Not everybody has a wife or kids or family living with them. There are lots of people living on their own, or maybe roommates had to go back home because they lost their jobs, whatever the case is. But there are a lot of people right now living in isolation.
Yeah.
So what are some things that people can do for themselves that are feeling the effects of just being lonely? List, what else do we got?
Yeah. What I love to do, and I did this sporadically before, but now I'm making an effort to do it every morning, is I wake up and I have a gratitude journal. And every day I wake up and I list like 1 to 3 things, you know, maybe elaborate on those 1 to 3 things on why I'm so grateful, you know. So you're waking up with the intention of being grateful. So like today, my gratitude like list was, you know, just being grateful for my counseling coach. And because she's just somebody who's been like a mentor to me, who like guided me through this process. So, you know, it's little things like that. And then the one the other day was like, my husband, Craig, put a brand new tube of toothpaste next to my sink. Like I'm grateful for stuff like that. Cause you know, who thinks of that? Like he does. So it's those little things. And it kind of, you know, again, you wake up with the intention of, you know, feeling grateful. So that's one thing that I do every day. Another thing that I'm trying to get in the habit of doing is actually just opening up the Bible. I mean, yeah, that's something that's that's something that I know I really need to work on. Another thing that we had mentioned is reaching out to people, join Zoom parties, communities. I think this is the best time, like, to actually get in touch with people who have been in your heart or in your mind, and you're like, oh, I wonder how they're doing. Well, I mean, there's literally no excuse to hit them up now and be like, hey, I just wanted to check in on you. I know we haven't spoken in like 5 years, but hey, you know. So
awesome. So
yeah.
I love to hear those things. One of the things, so going back to the grateful list, that's awesome. I love doing, and I love, me and Tara really try to, we don't write down a list of stuff, but just, in the morning, we do our devotion. Well, we try to do our devotions every morning together. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes she has to hop on calls right away. But then, just talking about a couple of things that were, start our day off positively, things that we're happy about. And then I try and, right now during the virus, my businesses are all shut down. So I am more of a full-time dad and nanny and housekeeper. But also because Tara's working such long days, we try and start our day off. We'll do our little devotions together and some prayer time, and then I'll make breakfast or, get everybody's breakfast set up. And then it's just really, how can I help Tara with her day? And for those that don't know, Tara, she's a VP of marketing for Cycle Bar. So she's got a heavy load on her shoulders at all times. They have over 200 studios. And so she's dealing with over 200 people going through crisis mode, day after day, as this has been drawn out now for a lot of people for 3-4 weeks. Some are a little less than that, but these are people's livelihoods, and she's such an empathetic person. She feels a lot of that. So, for me at night, when I see her, making sure that her day was okay, being able to let her talk about it, making sure that there's not much for her to do, making sure the dishes are all done. If I had a chance to make dinner, or, if she made dinner the night before, reheat what we had, make sure the laundry's done, make sure the floors are swept, her dogs are fed, daughter's fed, they're all, just trying to make sure everything's done. And
there you go.
What I'll say too is Tara did such a great job during when I was working, taking care of me. So when I came home, not having to deal with all those things, which was dinner stuff, but just
love it. Yeah.
For a walk, my food's in the microwave, eat what's in there, take a shower, get my day set for the next day, and continue on. So
yeah,
that's incredibly helpful for sure.
Yeah, well, I love it.
I do have one more question I wanted to ask for you. And so how can people get involved with what you're doing if they want to get involved? What are some needs you have, or how can people just get involved with, and maybe if it's not with you directly, like how can people go, what are directions people can go for looking to get involved with the fight against mental health issues?
Yeah. Honestly, I think outside of other companies, like just being an advocate for yourself, like identifying like what you stand for, like with your own mental health, and being okay talking about it and reaching out to people and actually asking them, like, instead of saying like, how are you doing? Maybe asking them like, how are you feeling? But in terms of like Take the Roots, I would say, right now, obviously everything's kind of a standstill, so we don't really have any events or anything like that. But just follow us on Instagram, Facebook, our website. We have updates there. One thing you can do right now is continue to purchase products online. We're still shipping out, so that still remains up and running. Otherwise, we don't have any current events lined up, but if you just follow us, then we'll definitely keep you guys updated.
All right, so Take the Roots, TIKVA, and then Roots, ROOTS, which is Elements of Hope. I actually don't follow it, so I am following it right now. So I now subscribed, and that's perfect. So I'm now on there. And yeah, thank you so much for this time. And again, I just want to reemphasize, look, we love everyone. And the big reason behind this podcast and the timing of this is because I know that right now so many people do feel isolated, and we're all in this together. We're going to be okay. We're going to figure it out. I know there's a lot of stress going on. I know there's a lot of uncertainty going on, and it can be stressful, and all these things are great. Make a gratitude list every day because there's things to be grateful for.
Yep.
If you got 10 fingers and 10 toes at work, be grateful. If you can walk, you got your general health. Those are things to be grateful for. You have people that love you. You love people. Be grateful. You're not starving. Be grateful, right? So challenge yourself to think outside the box too. And of course, that 911 list is amazing. I love it. Create a 911 list. Have 5 people on that and let them know. Ask them, because it's great to engage in some of those conversations, and maybe you're going to reach out to someone that needs it more than you do, and they didn't know it and you didn't know it.
Exactly.
And they're going to have a list.
Absolutely.
And then, the other things, we're living in a time right now where there really is no excuse not to be reaching out to people. So
Yep.
reaching out to people. And this was all great. Thank you so much for your time. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You want to leave us with before we end this for the day?
I guess we're going to get through this together. Nobody is alone in this, just think of something to be grateful every day with all that's going on. I know that's difficult to do, but when we really do think about it, kind of going back to what you're saying about having legs and toes and feet, if you have a roof over your head and a pillow to sleep on at night, that's something to be grateful for each day. So I think once all these superficial things get stripped from us, we really get to magnify the things that are being held in place, which is our relationships and, things like that. So yeah, I think just hold on to those things that are, unshakable, because this is the moment to really embrace them. And be kind. Kindness is a form of vulnerability, and you'd be surprised where kindness can take you. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate having you on. And again,
thank you.
Beseda with Get It. Please make sure you subscribe to Social Nostra on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Like us, follow us, comment. And again, if you want to reach out to me, my Instagram is SSBESEDA, and I respond to all my comments. I've been getting a few, so I hope that you guys are enjoying that. And thank you so much, Ania. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.